Welcome to Bibliowonder.
Good evening, everyone. Lucian, let's start somewhere quiet. Picture a forest at dusk, completely still, not a sound. And here's what I keep wondering, standing in that silence. Are the trees actually talking to each other? Or is that just a poetic thing people say?
It's one of those questions you almost feel silly asking out loud. And yet the answer science keeps circling toward is, in a way, yes. I just have to be careful with that, in a way.
Careful how?
Because a tree looks like the loneliest thing alive, rooted to one spot, unable to move, silent its whole life. But that single tree may not really be an individual at all. It might be one node in something much, much larger. And beneath your feet, hidden in the dark soil, there may be a vast network linking tree to tree. Something that, honestly, looks a lot like conversation.
Wait, beneath my feet? Underground?
That's where almost the whole story lives. We spend our lives gazing up at the branches, and the real secret was under our shoes the entire time.
Okay, so if there's a conversation underground, how does it actually work? Roots touching?
Not the roots themselves, fungi. This is the part that surprises everyone. You know mushrooms. Well, beneath a mushroom is a web of incredibly fine threads, and those threads spread through the soil and wrap themselves around tree roots, linking one tree to the next, tree after tree, across an entire forest. Scientists gave it a perfect nickname, the Wood Wide Web. And it isn't just plumbing for water. In a now famous experiment, a researcher fed one tree air laced with a special, traceable form of carbon, basically tagged it, and then went looking. And she found that exact tagged sugar inside a completely different tree growing nearby. It had traveled, underground, through the fungal threads, from one tree into another.
Careful how?
Because a tree looks like the loneliest thing alive, rooted to one spot, unable to move, silent its whole life. But that single tree may not really be an individual at all. It might be one node in something much, much larger. And beneath your feet, hidden in the dark soil, there may be a vast network linking tree to tree. Something that, honestly, looks a lot like conversation.
No, it actually moved between them?
It actually moved. Sugar made by one tree, ending up inside its neighbor. And that was the moment the forest stopped looking like a crowd of strangers standing near each other, and started looking like something closer to a single, connected body.
And the fungus? What's in it for the fungus? Why would it carry the tree's mail?
It takes a cut. Trees can make sugar from sunlight. Fungi can't. So the fungus plugs into the roots, skims off some of that sugar, and in return, it scours the soil for water and minerals the tree's own roots could never reach. It's a trade, and it's older than forests themselves.
But hold on. Moving sugar around. Is that really talking, or is it just leaking?
Fair challenge. But it's not random. It follows a pattern that's hard to explain as a simple leak. Picture two very different trees side by side, a birch and a fir. In summer, the birch is in full leaf, flush with sugar, and it sends some over to the fir sitting in its shade. Then comes autumn. The birch drops its leaves, goes hungry, and now the evergreen fir, still working, sends sugar back the other way.
So they trade, across the seasons, back and forth.
Back and forth. And here's the part that gives people chills. A tree that's dying, cut down, or infested, will sometimes pour its remaining carbon out into the network, releasing its life savings to the trees around it, right before the end.
Okay, that one stops me. A dying tree, emptying its account into its neighbors. I mean, you could hear that as the most generous thing in all of nature, a tree writing its will. But I'm guessing you're about to tell me it might not be that romantic.
You're already learning how I think. Hold that exact doubt, because it's going to matter a great deal later.
You keep using the word hub. What do you actually mean by that?
This is where it gets genuinely astonishing. In a lot of forests, the biggest, oldest trees turn out to sit at the center of the whole network, connected to hundreds of younger trees around them. Researchers gave them a name that tells you everything: mother trees. And these old giants don't just stand there. They appear to funnel sugar and nutrients down through the network to the small seedlings struggling in the deep shade, the little ones that can't yet catch enough light to feed themselves. The old feeding the young. And it goes further, into territory that genuinely stunned people. Some experiments suggest a mother tree can recognize which of those seedlings are its own kin, its own offspring, and send a little extra their way, compared to the strangers.
Wait. A tree can tell its own children from the other seedlings? A thing with no brain, no eyes?
No brain, no eyes, no nerves, and somehow apparently favoring its own. That's the claim that set the world on fire. And here's what makes it even bigger. This partnership between plants and these fungi is not some recent trick. It's around 500 million years old. When plants first crawled out of the water onto bare rock, they did it hand in hand with fungi, and they've been trading underground ever since, long before flowers, before dinosaurs, before anything. So if this really is a conversation, it might be the oldest conversation on Earth, older than every word any human being has ever spoken.
500 million years. I came into this thinking of a forest as a bunch of trees that happen to grow near each other. And you're telling me it might be one connected thing, having a conversation that started before animals even existed. That genuinely reframes how I'll look at a forest.
It does. Though, and I really want to flag this now, not everyone agrees on how much of that beautiful story actually holds up. We're going to come back to that, hard.
You keep pointing underground. Can trees signal above ground too? Through the air?
They can. And there's a famous, almost cinematic example out on the African savanna, the acacia.
What happens to the acacia?
A giraffe starts tearing at its leaves, and the acacia fights back chemically. Within minutes, it floods its own leaves with bitter compounds until it tastes awful. But that's only half of it. The wounded tree also releases a gas into the air, and the nearby acacias, trees the giraffe hasn't even reached yet, pick up that gas and start pumping out their own bitter compounds, defending themselves before the giraffe ever arrives.
Hold on. So the first tree is basically shouting, "They're coming."
In chemical form, yes. A warning, carried on the wind.
But, okay, let me push on that. Is the first tree really warning the others? Or are the neighbors just smelling the damage and reacting for themselves? Because those are two very different stories.
And that is exactly the right question. Hold on to it, because it's the crack the skeptics pry open later. For now, here's what's not in dispute. Whether it's a deliberate warning or just neighbors eavesdropping on a chemical leak, the untouched trees really do end up defended. The effect is real, either way.
Is the message always just danger, defend yourself? Or can it get more specific?
Sometimes startlingly specific. When certain plants are attacked by caterpillars, they don't only make themselves toxic, they release a scent that calls for help. And the help that answers is predatory wasps. The exact wasps that hunt that exact caterpillar. The plant sends out a chemical SOS, and its bodyguards arrive to eat the thing that's biting it.
Wait, the plant orders a hit on its own attacker?
Crudely put, yes. And here's the kicker. Some plants can tell what kind of creature is chewing on them from the chemistry of its saliva and release a different blend of scent depending on who the attacker is.
So it's not one generic scream. It's closer to naming the enemy.
A different message for a different threat. The more closely we listen, the bigger the vocabulary seems to get.
This is making me wonder how much a plant actually senses. Can a plant, I don't know, hear?
Not with ears. But there's a genuinely strange finding here. Some plants can detect the tiny vibrations of a caterpillar chewing on a leaf, and just those vibrations, that feeling of being eaten, are enough to make them ramp up their chemical defenses in advance. And they respond to touch, to light, to neighbors crowding them, leaning, competing, adjusting. A plant is constantly tasting and feeling the world around it.
It just does it so slowly we never notice.
That's the heart of it. We live in seconds. They live in seasons. We may have been standing inside a conversation this whole time, one happening far too slowly for us to hear.
That's honestly a little haunting.
It is. And it's right about here that I have to stop and be honest with you. Because this is the point where the story gets complicated.
Honest how? You've nearly convinced me the forest is one big, loving family.
And that's exactly why I have to pump the brakes, hard. Because over the last few years, a lot of serious scientists have pushed back on this beautiful story. A major review went carefully through the most romantic claims, that mother trees deliberately nurse their own kin, that trees send warnings through the fungal web to save each other, and its conclusion was sobering. The evidence is thinner than the headlines suggest. Some of it had been overstated. Some of it rested on just a handful of studies, and the researchers themselves, being human, had sometimes fallen in love with the idea and read too much into the data. There's even a name for that: confirmation bias.
So the Wood Wide Web might be partly wishful thinking?
Partly, maybe. So let me give you the careful version, the honest version. That the fungal networks exist, that carbon and chemical signals can move through the soil, that part is real. That's solid. What's genuinely uncertain is the why. A dying tree releasing its carbon isn't necessarily a generous farewell. It might just be chemistry running downhill, the way water finds the lowest point. And a mother tree feeding seedlings might not be kindness at all. It could be the fungus moving resources around for its own benefit, with the trees just along for the ride.
Oh, so the fungus might be the one running the whole show, not the trees.
That's one of the more unsettling possibilities, yes. We see a loving, cooperative forest, partly because we are a deeply social species, and that's the story we ache to find. The real forest might be doing something far stranger and far less human than conversation. And the truth is, we still don't fully know. But I want to be clear, that uncertainty isn't a failure of science. It's the most honest place the science can actually stand right now.
You know, I think that's why I trust it more, not less. You could have just handed me the fairy tale. Connected forest, wise mother trees, everyone helping everyone. Instead, you're telling me, here's what's solid, here's what's still an argument. That's somehow more wonderful, not less.
The real forest is mysterious enough. It doesn't need us to decorate it.
So if we're not even sure it's talking, does any of this actually matter?
Enormously. Maybe more, not less. Because whatever we end up calling it, one thing is no longer in doubt. A forest is not just a pile of separate trees. It's a deeply connected system, stitched together below ground in ways we're only beginning to map. And that changes how we should treat it. When we clear-cut a forest and leave a few scattered trees behind, we may be tearing out the old hub trees and ripping that underground network apart, pulling out the very threads that help a forest heal and regrow.
So even the cautious version still lands on handle with care.
Handle with care. Because we're not managing a warehouse of timber. We're touching something woven, ancient, and still mostly hidden from us.
You know, Lucian, I came into this expecting a clean yes or no. Do trees talk? Yes, no. Instead, I feel like I've been let in on a secret the forest is still keeping, even from the scientists.
That's the honest place to land, Julia. A tree isn't the lonely thing it pretends to be, and a forest isn't a crowd of strangers. Something connects them. We're just still arguing about what to call it, and who's really in charge down there.
What stays with me most is that one idea, that under all that silence, there might be something passing back and forth that's older than our entire species.
And maybe that's the quiet lesson. We always look for connection in the loud, obvious places. The forest keeps its connection underground, in the dark, exactly where no one ever thinks to look.
So the next time I walk into the woods,
Stand still for a minute. You won't hear a single thing. But somewhere beneath your feet, something may be moving from tree to tree, patient, ancient, and almost beyond our understanding. And just knowing it might be there changes the whole forest around you. Until next time.
take care, everyone.